The rise in hate crimes against Asians and Asian Americans, and this is something that really started to increase with the start of COVID and people mistakenly blaming Asians and scapegoating Asians for the pandemic. Uh, but I think it's important to realize that this has actually been going on for generations and generations. The first Chinese to immigrate to America in the early 20th century, who were came to America to build the railroads to connect the country in absolutely harsh conditions, because there were very few other groups that were willing to subject themselves to that sort of labor, were treated incredibly unfairly and incredibly unequally. So all of that, and then there's just been generations and generations of different forms of that hate, both systemic and like person to person, that have taken place. So COVID has kind of like put an uptick on that, but it's really been going on, and the roots of it are really old. So the forces that we have to reckon with are really like deeply rooted. But it means that we can all be part of the solution, and I think that is a nice opportunity there as well. In terms of like what we do about it, I like to focus on a few different things. One is talking to folks about history and context. Asian American history is not something that I learned in school. And I was a pretty good student, and I like studied everything in the book. And I thought everything in the book was everything there was to learn. And so when I got older and I started realizing that there was so much that unfortunately wasn't included in like my public school curriculum, that was very eye-opening to me. So I think the first things that we can do are to teach and to learn and to understand that we're all coming at this, at these issues, not just for Asian American history, but all sorts of ethnic and immigrant history from different, we're all coming at it from different places. We know different things, we have different perspectives, we've been taught different things. And so we're all on this journey, and just sitting in that and being comfortable with that and talking to people about that. Specifically, I, through the arts organizations that I'm a part of, so I'm part of a freestyle hip hop improv team called North Coast. And we're like an incredibly multicultural and diverse team. And it was really important to work with my team to put out a statement of solidarity, just as we did last summer with Black Lives Matter after the murder of George Floyd, on these topics, and to do it before it sort of became trendy to do so. So having these conversations early, being a leader and not just a follower, is something that I really encourage everyone here to do, because there's always something that you can teach and learn from that. I started hearing about these attacks really early on because they were happening to people who were close to me, people who were friends, people who were family, and it was before it was getting mainstream media attention. And I'm someone who like is not always on social media, but whether it's social media, whether it's your personal conversations that you're having with loved ones, finding some way to talk about things that are important to you culturally. There's a lot of dynamics where sometimes it is seen as noble to take the challenges of life and not complain about them too much and just be resilient. And I think there is beauty in that, and there's strength in that, and that is a very wonderful thing. But there are times to just be the rock and be resilient, and then there's also times to make some noise. And I think right now is a good time to start making noise.
Start making some noise. You talked a little bit about Asian American history, and I'm with you. JD, I started trying to figure out, what did I learn? I couldn't remember one thing. I'm going to be honest. I couldn't remember one thing that I learned. I started doing my own research, and my mind was blown. Things that I didn't even know about, right? Like the 1882 Chinese Exclusion Act, which,
Mhm.
by the way, is the first and remains the only law that was implemented to prevent all members of a specific ethnic or national group from immigrating to the United States.
Yep.
That blew my mind, right?
Yeah.
Why don't we know these things?
I think we don't know we don't know for a lot of reasons. I think one of the big things that is a through line in American history are the relations between white people and black people, right? And this is such a predominant force in our history, most of the time very tragically so. Um, that is a lens through which, especially people who want to be woke and want to understand things better, really see American history, and for very, very good reason. I think the challenge to everyone is to realize that there are, like, American history is involves a lot of different dynamics, and uh, when, in the early days of the census, when they started like keeping track of different ethnic groups in America, uh, those early forms just had two boxes you could check: you were white or you were black. And so, like, if you were Asian or coming from any other country or any other group, like, what box did you check?
You know what to check.
And that has been the struggle. I don't know exactly. I think it's almost, at some point it's less important to really pick apart why and just start fixing the problem, because that has been one of the big struggles, of Asian Americans. uh, I would say there's three really, really big ones. One is the objectification of Asian women, the emasculation of Asian men, culturally, and then the erasure of the Asian American experience. And that last one is really, really harmful and really, really insidious, because when you start to say, like, oh, you're either, one of these two groups, but, like, we don't really care if you're something else, then that starts to dehumanize a group of people. And when a group of people are dehumanized, then that starts to lead some of the crazier, more aggressive, maybe more mentally unstable, prone to violence people to think that, oh, we can harm these people and it doesn't matter because they're not actually people. Um, so I think that is the really, really important uh, thing to think about when talking about how important it is to learn and to see this group of people as people with, like, really rich stories and really rich histories.